Greetings. I am Shakara. A lot of people, many titles. In this context, we're having a lecture about perception. So we're operating more in the Buddhistic and energetic world. So in this would I be Geru Shakara, as in a silent Heru, like Guru. But I've also known as Tata, Baba, various titles. So today's lecture is perception. And the overview is we're going to start by working on helping people understand what they see, what they don't see, the validity of what they see, and expanding it to helping people understand the limitations of their perceptual reality, like what is in the box, and then so they can, once they understand they're in the box firmly, they can have an awareness of what's out of the box, or to eventually will move to dealing with a sense and an operation out of the box of perception. Okay, so we're going to talk about this box of perception. So I'm going to put in this image you'll see, we'll have what perception is and how it operates. So the world is the world. All the information in the world is out there. Let's say there's 100% of the world out there. Your perception is affected by your emotions. First layer. Then your mindset. So if you're mad, you'll see certain things. If you're sad, you'll see certain things. The old thing about rose tinted glasses, if you're happy and you're joyful, the birds sing louder, the flowers are in places you notice that you don't notice. Mindset is heavily associated with belief. You believe something exists, you don't believe it exists. If you don't believe it exists, you won't see it. If you do believe it exists, you'll see patterns where patterns may be or may not be. If you don't believe it exists, you'll miss patterns. They're there, but you'll miss them. It's part of that world that's out there. Inherent bias. So we have biases that we have that are built in, many times baked in from a long time, and then past experiences limit our perception or shape our perception. And there is a physiological level. We say all the information, we mean all the information capable of being perceived by your physiological state at this time. So I like working from the bottom up. So when we talk about the physiological state, so a person who's colorblind is only getting a limited amount of information because they can't see. So if there was a mural with certain things in red and blue and certain contrasts, a colorblind person would miss not just the colors, but the images on the mural. And therefore, they are not seeing all of what's being conveyed by the universe. Similarly, many of us have a range of normal color perception. I say this because even among humans, there's a percentage of humans who are the opposite of colorblind. They have hyper color sensitivity. Usually it happens in women, and it means that they literally, physiologically can perceive literally millions of colors, way more than us, because of a different physiological structure in their eyes. They're perceiving that which is that we can't perceive, these women, with this ability. And then there are other animals in the world that perceive into the ultraviolet and into the infrared. I don't know why I look down for infrared, up for ultraviolet. But on the light spectrum, infrared is considered lower frequencies. Ultraviolet is considered higher frequencies. And so plants, for example, flowers. There's a world of information conveyed into ultraviolet. Insects, a lot of times, perceive ultraviolet because they're looking at flowers, and you'll see stripes and patterns that tell the insect to fly here, get nectar here, things like that. One of the story, flowers and bees. Not only is there ultraviolet patterns on many flowers to tell the bees right where to get the honey, there's also electromagnetic symbols or signatures. So, plants, they tend to have like a negative charge. I'm thinking negative, positive. Bees, I think it's positive. And what happens is when a bee flies to a plant, I mean a flower, to get the nectar, the positive and negative charge cancel. So it gets the nectar and it goes on its way. The next bee flying along perceives that that flower does not have a charge, which means no nectar. So not only is there ultraviolet perception, but there's actually electrostatic perception. And earlier, in previous lessons, we talked about magnetoscopy, how birds can see magnetic fields, and how humans have vestigial magnetic field perceptions here. And the immediate previous lesson, we talked about the third eye and other realms of perception. So there's physical challenges to perception or boxes. We talked about pineal gland being calcified to limit your perception in another box, because everybody's box is their own box. So me seeing a million colors and you seeing 20 and this other person seeing, I don't know, a billion, we don't know usually, except that person with millions of billions is telling you about things. You're like, what? And the person over there who's colorblind is like, what are you guys talking about? All I see is shapes, more or less. Not picking on colorblind people. Anyway, so we're talking about just how perception is framed, just this scaffolding, physiological scaffolding, and then psychological scaffolding. So, an example of the psychological scaffolding. Okay, so there's something known as the Mullers-Lyer illusion, and it's basically you've got two lines, one with arrows going in, one with arrows going out, and the question is asked, which is longer? And most people tend to get it wrong based on psychological sociological biases. They perceive one line longer than the other. The reality is the lines are exactly the same length. Spoiler. So, but you looked at the image and you saw they was the same. Cool. And so that's one level. Another one is something called the Chubb illusion. The Chubb illusion. Okay. And these are names of psychologists who, in the Western concept, discovered these things. These images and these psychological practices and perception patterns were noticed long ago by artists and architects in many other cultures. But just for reference, if you want to look it up, we're using the names. The Chubb illusion. Okay. What is the Chubb illusion? So the Chubb illusion has to do, normally you see it as a box. And it looks like, and then behind the box, there's a pattern of gray. One side darker, one side lighter. And then the box looks like, important point, looks like the colors in the box are changing from side to side, like a spectrum. But reality is, that is a mental, perceptual, some people would say defect, because the color is consistent. Our perception of the color, lightness and darkness, is being modified by the contrast to the background. So when you remove the background, you see it as one constant color. You know, so this is, and it's interesting that some people don't see this, depending on their culture and background. But again, this is your brain interpreting image using imperfect transmission. Okay, another one that's famous. A lot of German here. Okay, Ebenheist illusion. This one I always find stunning. So you see the image. The question is, which circle is bigger, left or right? Tick, 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 tick. And because we know that these are illusions, we already kind of get the hunch that even though our brain keeps telling us the one on the right is significantly bigger than the one on the left, it's again a matter of contrast and perception. If you look at it, boom. Okay, so What is this all about? All of this is to help you learn that what you see is not exactly what it is based on the limits of the physiology and the psychology of your vision. This lesson is about perception and what something we call seeing. We're going to go into this concept of mystic seeing way over there. But the first thing we have to do is unhinge and decouple people's absolute belief in what they see is what there is. To accept the limitations of both our physiological and psychological perception. The psychological perception, by the way, can be changed and does change, as we see later, or we'll see later. Okay, so now, seeing and perception. Vision and memory is really designed to organize the world into categories, threats, non-threats, important, food sources, stuff like that. It's not actually designed to build a photographic perfect recall. We're not robots. So, and this is very important in criminal cases and other places because people think they remember things, but it's not actually how memory works. It's not how seeing works. Okay? Um, and when things have been changed in your psychology, there's an old test where they say, count how many things you see that's red. No, close your eyes and count how many things you see is red. You close your eyes, you go doop, 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 doop. And then when you open your eyes and you count how many seeds are red, you pick up all these other little things, not just the obvious cushions behind me, but the little red heart I see in the picture over there. Things that you just did not perceive earlier, but were there, obviously there, by the way. This gets into inattentive, what is it? There's inattentive blindness. Okay, so seeing and memory. This opens us up to the world of visual illusions. Visual illusions to test personality, meaning that since we know that your mind state and emotions affect how you perceive the world, therefore it is logical to presume that certain images will be seen by certain type of people. Happy people will see one thing, unhappy people will see others. People with open minds will see one thing, people with closed minds or narrow minds will see others. So, and that it gets even more sophisticated. So let's talk about the people column image. Okay, what's the people column image? Yeah. Okay, the people column image. It's a visual illusion that reveals if you feel trapped in your life. So look at it. What do you see? All right. So some people see two men facing each other. Some people see white pillars. If you see the pillars, it means you feel trapped in your life. So now you got to go do a gut check. Yeah. Do I feel boxed in? And you know, you may not want to admit that to yourself because this is when we get into delusion. We lie to ourselves about a lot of things. But if you saw the pillars, you felt trapped. If you see the men, you didn't feel trapped. You know, you look at it and you have an honest conversation with yourself. So remember, a big part of this teaching is about self-discovery. And in self-discovery, we have to look in the mirror of life and say, what's going on? Am I really happy? Am I unhappy? What's making me happy? Who am I blaming for my problems? What do I feel? A lot of people don't even know what they feel. Tell you the truth, I've worked with a lot of students. They know a feeling, but they can't lock it in often. Okay, so another one is the Indian temple image. So we look at this image, boom. What is it? Now, it's old. Definitely some animals of some sort. But what do you see? I'm playing the Jeopardy music in my head. Okay, so you looked at this image and what did you see? So, some people saw a buffalo. Some people saw an elephant. What does that mean? Well, if you saw the elephant first, so first of all, this is it's from a Hindu temple. Um, so the elephant is associated with Lord Lakshmi, goddess of wealth, and or yeah, Lakshmi has many hands. Um, think Delta Sigma Theta, thoughtful and considerate and kind. That kind of mindset. If you saw the elephant, why is it not moving down? Did I move something? Okay. Okay. If you saw the buffalo, so you should be seeing now an image with the buffalo highlighted, which helps. Because honestly, the first time I looked at it, the buffalo looked kind of weird to me from this image, but it's an actual image from a temple, so that's how it goes. Sometimes those temple images don't resonate as clearly as I thought. Okay, that's interesting. All right, boom, 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 boom. The buffalo is more considered about driving and engaging. An elephant's a little more, and they're not really that laid back. A bull elephant can be quite raging, but elephants generally are a little bit more feminine association, feminine energy, calmness, kindness, those kind of things, loyalty, intelligence. Okay, boom. So I put that in there because I want people to know that it's not just all these modern psychologists, a lot of them German actually, who understood these. Things are old and they're in temple walls and ancient India, ancient Kemet. Um, and they give the same understanding of what you see reflects where you're at. And I'm sure the priest used them for various tests. Okay, now the one that gets a little more complicated. So this is the image you're going to look at. We're getting into those were the warm-ups. So you're going to see this. It looks like somebody took paint and spaghetti with whack. The question is, what do you see first? There are a lot of stuff going on in here. Okay, so what do you see first? Depends on assuming that you have colored vision. There's a lot of images, and I'm going to quickly go through the images that are there. And the issue is this: it's not only what do you see first, but it's also what you didn't see. Um, those are again, these are all personality tests. I'm sure you've done some of these. I like this one because it's a lot going on. There's a lion in there if you didn't see it. Um, there's a cat. Cat means determination. Lion means natural born leader. That's pretty, everybody associates that. There's a whale in there. It means self aware. There's a wolf that talks about being mysterious and you value yourself as a mysterious person. Um, you value mystery. And also intelligent, instinctive, determined. Every now and then I get pulled into it. The horse, adventurous, independent. Yeah, there's a horse there. There's the owl. The owl jumps out to me a lot. Intelligent, sensitive. Yeah. The wolf, reserved, passionate. When I look at it, I don't see the wolf much. The monkey, playful. I often see the monkey. The elephant, strong spirited, selfless. The turtle, clever, introverted. The bear, strong, courageous. Like, there's lots of stuff in here, right? The giraffe, particular and patient. Now, the question is not only what did you see, but what you didn't see. I'll tell you one I didn't see. I didn't see the giraffe. And when you look at this multiple times, you'll notice different things appear to you. I didn't see the bear or the turtle. And even though I like to consider myself an introvert, a lot of times I'm acting in an extroverted space because of my role as a spiritual teacher. So therefore, but it's interesting that what comes to me a lot is the monkey and the cat in this one, which talks about playfulness and determination. Anyway, now we're talking, went into the generic ones that people tend to care about. The next one is going to be an image. Boom. This image talks about what face do you see first. So it's an image. You look at it. If I describe it, I will, my own bias by me describing it to you will put what I normally see first as the framework because that's my perceptual bias. So when you look at it, I'm not going to describe it, but you see it. Now, what do you see? Well, I'll tell you what I see. Well, let me tell you what the thing is. There are many faces in this illusion. Okay, there's a face of a man. There's a man standing in a coat. There's a baby lying on a table. There's a sorcerer reading a book, and there's two women dressed in white. Okay, if you see the face of the man, it means that one of the important things for you in a relationship is to be understood. If you see the man standing on the side, I already know it's inclusion. It means that acceptance is one of the key things for you in relationships. Okay, baby lying at the table, you need to feel nurtured. Sorcery in the book, spiritually connected. And the last one is two women in dress. You need to feel challenged. I really don't understand how that one works. But sometimes you want to feel that your partner not only is there with you, but is as strong as you. And it kind of pushes you back when you need to get pushed back, challenged. So it's an interesting psychological test. It just gives you now a little more of a window into yourself. And as you change, you will see different things, which is important. We're going to get there next. The last one, if you have the courage for it, is you look at this picture, and in this picture, what you see reveals what you don't like in romantic partners or people in general. So you look at the picture, and it's what you see talks about what you don't like. And that is something that we don't always be obvious with or truthful about. So you look at it, you make a note. How do you feel? What do you see? So the things that are in the picture, for those who didn't see it all, there's a man on his knees. There's an angry man. There's a red curtain. There's a man's face in the profile. Yeah, a lot of people missed that one. Face in the profile. Okay, if you see the face in the profile, you don't like stubborn people. You find stubbornness to be just the thing that drives you crazy. If you see the red curtain, it means you don't like dramatic persons. Woo, woo, woo. Some people like drama in their life, keeps it spicy. Some people just run away from it. You see the angry man, you don't like short-tempered people. The man in knees, you don't like neediness, needy people. And so these different kind of things in relationships. You got to look at it and reflect upon yourself, what you are and what you don't like. So this is, take your notes, and it's something you discuss with your partner or your study buddy about yourself. All right, now let's get to change blindness. So now we know that we don't perceive things as we think we perceive them. They're not accurate. They're physiological and sometimes psychological modifications. And that as our beliefs and values change, even what we see, now we're talking about the fact, how dramatic can it be? Change blindness. There's a video that you should go watch. It's called Monkey Business. It's like 2 minutes long. You watch the video, you answer the question, and you come back. And we do the Jeopardy music, at least in my head. Okay. So, you're back. What did you see? How many times did they pass the ball? Okay. You were counting. How many people saw the gorilla? What? What gorilla? Okay. It's easier done when you're in person, but on the video, still people miss it. What happens is, this is a very famous experiment in psychology. We have three people in white, three people in black t-shirts, and they're passing basketball to each other, like a three-man drill, those who play basketball. As they're doing this drill, we, the subjects, sit there, and it says, count the passes, either the black team or the white team. And you're counting passes, 1, 2, 3, it's one ball, 4. But while you're doing that, the other team's passing. So, like it's kind of, you got to focus, you lose track. While this drill happens, a man in a gorilla suit walks in the center, thumps his chest 3 times, and keeps going. Now, what happened? A significant number of people miss the gorilla. They just don't see it. They don't believe they don't see it until people show them the video again and point it out. What does that mean? That we could miss some really pretty, hugely obvious stuff. I mean, the big black hairy gorilla suit, people in little white suits, little white t-shirts, passing basketball. There's another famous one where people are counting cars, like you're on the street. They say, hey, look, we're going to pay you a psychological test. You're going to count red cars or white cars, whatever. And while they're doing that, they'll have somebody in a blue car or a green car drive by with a monkey, not a monkey, a dog head. And people are like, what? And some people who are standing on the street will see that and go, whoa, that's strange. But the people who are counting many times miss the person in the the dog head walking by. There are lots of these tests, and then most people don't believe they missed it. Another one, the ones I think are really interesting, is talking to a person. So you're giving directions to, a tourist, and the way it's set up, it's a tourist. Somebody walks by with like a big billboard, workman guys with equipment. They walk by, they split you for a moment as they walk by. One of the last guy of the workmen is actually stops and becomes the tourist. And the person who's the tourist jumps on behind the walkaway and goes away. So now there's a different person asking you for directions. Boom. Many people don't notice the switch. So you're talking to somebody and they're talking back to you. Stop for a moment. You look up. It's a different person. But many times the person does not realize, and they do look up, talking up and down, pointing to the directions, pointing to locations, pointing to direction, location. When the times you go down, it's a different person. And a significant number of people don't notice it. So that video is in the references. You can go look at it. There's another one that I saw. I don't have it here, but I can throw it in the references, where it's a reservation. You have a pencil, and they're doing a reservation, and the person drops the pencil, so you look down for it, and when you look up, it's a different person. They might have the same red vest, black thing, but it's a woman instead of a man. It's somebody with a mustache or not. And many people, the significant portion of people, don't notice the person that did the reservation swap. They've done it with checkout counters, same thing. So this all falls under the broader category of change blindness. So we're building the understanding that what you think you perceive, or you just missed immense amounts, both on top of the electromagnetic spectrum, things beyond like X-ray and cosmic, below and infrared, in depth maybe, because we only can get maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 100,000 of the millions of colors that exist. So in each aspect of perception, we are actually a lot more limited than we realize. And in percentage of actually what's going on, even within the block that we can see, feel, hear, and touch, we simply are missing big chunks of what goes on. And a big part of it is mindset. Now, we cannot change the biology of our eyes. It's not within our control. But we can change our mindset. So the first thing we have to understand is fear and anger shape our perception very much, very directly. So, in biological responses, you get cortisol, adrenaline. So, martial arts guys will tell you about this. In a fight, your mind changes. And I've had it happen to me. And things seem to slow down. And as things are slowing down, depending on the situation, assuming it's life threatening, suddenly the knife looks like it's moving in slow motion. You see the gun coming out. So your brain, the time has not changed externally, but your perception of it changes so that you're able to respond, which seems very fast, but since you're perceiving everything slow, your response actually becomes faster. Another example, I remember there was a famous baseball, no, he wasn't famous, he was a baseball guy. And I know this is something that you do in Japan. They have a practice, a yoga practice, where they practice with breath control so they can slow down and see the ball going slow and hit it. And there's a couple famous guys, like, there are people who really can cut a bullet in the air. You can, grapes, because they're perceiving the world moving way slower, and that allows them to be incredibly accurate and very efficient with their movement. Okay, but this is by changing their mind state, and they're perceiving more. So in the East, India and Buddhist and Asian practices, this is common. It's not common. It's taught. It's well understood. And emotion, the mind state, it affects your cognitive bias, it affects your attention bias, it affects memory formation. For the negative, now let's talk about the positive: gratitude and love. Let me tell you, this having the positive mindset allows you to see beauty in the world that you never saw. I think there's a great lesson. I guess I'll share it with you. That I share with my students. It's called Beauty in the Dark, and it's actually based on a episode of Babylon 5, where the lead character Sheridan goes into what's called Down Below, which is pretty much the ghetto of this floating city, and he's in the this stinky garbagey place with these beggar guys, and he's being instructed by another alien to give them money, and they will sing for you. He's like, oh my gosh, can't wait to get out here. I don't understand this. Gives the money, and then beauty ensues. He never realized that beauty existed in the garbage pile of his own city. So, a positive attitude allows you to see and perceive beauty and to feel the beauty, connect with it vastly more than you realize. So these emotional states change, and we can talk back about the chakras for a second, and how when somebody is in a certain state of chakra blockage, they don't perceive stuff. They may not receive love or opportunity. This is what the wealth guys are talking about. That by changing your mindset, you see opportunities that weren't there, woo, and you're able to make a lot more money. Fundamentally true that there are opportunities that we don't see all the time based on our mindset. How much they pad it up is another story, but that's true. So, two things you want to work on: getting out of the funk. Because when you're in a funky state, you're basically in a state of negativity. And it's not a judgment. Depression serves a purpose. Once upon a time, way back in the savage days of Animal Kingdom, when you were depressed, oh, my hunting partner died. You go home and you sulk. Brr, 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 brr. Okay. And you don't want to go out. That's a safety mechanism. The last thing you need to do in a dangerous world is be in an emotional state of constriction where you're not paying attention to a lot of stuff outside because you're going through emotions and stuff, and walk around because then you're going to get eaten. Makes sense. And your emotional energies are being focused on processing grief, all that other kind of stuff. So I'm not saying these things are wrong. I'm just saying they need to be used in proper place at proper time. And sometimes we're in a funk with stuff that we need to let go. And so, there's this whole process of we call emotional management, you know, that is a precursor to proper perception. So we just, uh, this is a short lesson. That's a funk. Get out of funk. Some people, okay, quickie. If you look up and make a stupid grin or make a silly sound, it is hard to feel bad. Our physiology is very much tied to our psychology. So, I had mentioned a little bit about this. When people feel depressed, they tend to hunch their shoulders. They breathe a certain way. They look down. So we know eye patterns, right? They're accessing their feelings. And you do that, you start feeling pretty glum. You can dance, sing, smile. And they're talking about smiling. And men smile a lot less than women. That will change your emotional energy. Um, you know, um, these are things that help change. Do something. Go for a walk. Just literally, especially if it's a sunny day. If it's a rainy day, a sunny day, go for a walk in the park and count the flowers, count the trees. Something that puts your attention into nature will shift your emotion, and when you come back, you're different. Sometimes people say learn something, or do something simple, complete something, clean your room. All these things build validation or success or reward in your body. So it's just a simple task. The world seems to be very neurotic, and a lot of depression and strain and stress from these people. Okay, big part of emotional, the emotional part is forgiveness. Gotta talk about forgiveness a little bit. Why? Okay, by forgiveness, there was a study I heard. I have not researched it, but I heard that by doing forgiveness, that certain people, athletes, were able to increase their vertical jump. That it so significantly changes your physiology that it's really good for you. The Buddhists say when you plan on revenge, when you carry revenge, dig two graves. One for yourself, one for the other person. Because carrying all that negative energy poisons yourself. In this look, we're focusing on perception. But what it also does is cause you to be dead inside and miss the glory of the journey while you're busy worrying about revenge for something that happened 5, 10, 15 years ago. You're deadening a certain part of yourself. I know it sounds dramatic, but it's real. It's real, it's real, it's real. I'm not saying forget it, because I'm not a forgetting dude. I'll remember. But at some point, you have to let go. Let the karma deal with them. Doesn't mean they don't still owe you the money. They don't need owe you an apology. They don't need to fix whatever it was that was done if they were wrong. Remember perception. We may have received something wrong and been carrying anger and bitterness over a misperception for 10, 15 years. Ooh, what a shame. So, you let it go. And you move on without the emotional burden, which causes you blockage. So, after all this, we've cleared the slate. We've done emotional management. We've taken our vitamins so our eyes work properly. We get into the topic of mystic seeing. So, seeing and seeing. There's a dualistic understanding of the world, the physical and the spiritual. We've been talking about the physical. And in the physical, you have this conditioning and imprinting and limitations that cause you to see the world a certain way. The spiritual is the same. There's a spiritual world out there, we believe. And it is through, again, conditionings, physiological stuff, psychological stuff, self hate. Very interesting. Let's talk about race a little bit. It's very interesting sometimes that certain European people will die, go to heaven, and suddenly be like, oh my gosh, God is a black woman or something like that. There is conditionings that cause people to perceive the spiritual world differently. And then it's a matter of how well or ready are they to see the truth of a thing. Love is a big part of this conditioning because when you love more, you see more because you receive more. Believe it or not, gender identity. Again, remember those psychological tests we took. Your open mindedness, closed mindedness, things you love, things you hate. All these things are shaping your physiological perception of things we can test and show you. Now, we talk about emptying the cup. If you open the spiritual world without emptying the cup, you're going to get the same thing. Now, there are plant medicines, ayahuasca, iboga, psilocybin, peyote. These plants will help you open the cup, perceive the spiritual world. What they're not going to do is empty the cup. All your biases, fears, limitations will still be there on the other side. That's why you need support when you do these type of things. Because there are times you will see stuff that is not good because you brought it with you. These are your own fears, your own demons. Now you're just seeing them in another realm. So you ever met somebody and they got a lot of issues and they're not dealing with them? They're like ignoring them because they are, their mental issues. I'm not talking about a crazy person. I'm talking about somebody with trauma, somebody with anger management issues, whatever. If they go into, the spiritual side, do you think they're going to see rainbows and fairies, butterflies? No. Those anger issues, all those things take a very intense form. Okay. General statements. Okay. We like to call it the second attention. What's the second attention? Well, the first attention is the physical attention. It's the physical world. Okay. It's the world of normal perception. The second attention is the metaphysical world, the world of spiritual attention. Okay. This language, by the way, is strongly associated with shamanism. In the shamanic world, they talk about three levels. The first attention, which is the physical world. The second attention, which is the spiritual world. And the third level of attention, which is the smooth integration of the spiritual and the physical. Most people have to work, meditate really hard to get to the second attention. Some people are more practiced at it. A lot of us use plant medicine as a bridge to develop the connection to the second attention, the C. But eventually, the second attention and the first attention have to be unified into what's called the third attention. Because otherwise, you'd be what we call crazy. If you're walking around and talking to trees, and the trees are talking back, and you still don't see the car coming, that's not good. It is great to be spiritual, great to be connected to things, but you need to filter and balance all of what's going on. The physical world is here, so to speak. But the metaphysical world is there. Easier to ignore for some, but the reality is they interweave. And what this is about is understanding that you want to develop perception in both and then a balance of perception. Again, if you're afraid and you walk into a room and for some reason you're afraid of red, you'll see red everywhere. If you're afraid of Mice. The mice will look big and scary. Car driver. If you had a traumatic car accident and you driving for some reason and you see a car that looks like the car you had an accident with, even if it's way over in the right lane, it's looking big and scary. Your perception is askew. And it would be advisable that you do some meditation and some shadow work, maybe, or some trauma healing before you go into power medicine. Because your second attention is going to be full of monsters. I put that in quotes because these are your fears and your traumas. And I'm not saying there aren't other things out there, but I'm saying half the things you'll see will be your monsters. So, all this is to prep you for the meditative practice of third eye seeing, which we talked about previously, which is after we clear, again, the physical level, clear the calcification of your pineal gland, because if there's a calcium line, you ain't seeing nothing. And then we do the practice at night, we do our meditation, we eat properly, and we are opening our mind to dreaming and seeing. And from here, the other lessons begin. So, this was the foundation to unhinge you from your limitation, remind you of the lessons we did before, third eye seeing, and talking about the pineal gland and stuff, and some chakra stuff. Understanding block chakras, no seeing. Pineal gland blocked, no seeing. Psychological issues, which usually reflected in block chakras, you will see it. People with heart issues, you'll see emotional love issues, the heart chakra will be doing some weird stuff. Again, no seeing. These are all the things that have to be put in line before we start developing seeing. And seeing is where the lessons really begin. It allows you to connect to that which is real. You know, the greater expanse of reality versus a limited reality. And so you can look at the videos. There's also an audio lesson about mystic seeing from my teacher that is, you can look. It's also in the drive. And I encourage you to meditate, eat clean, clear your profile, work with emotional rebalancing. Find yourself a good yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, maybe priest, and start to see the world for yourself, because then you will know for yourself. Because spirituality is a direct experience, not a book. Peace.